Hello friends, good evening. Welcome to 21st Century IAS Academy online classes. In our today video session, we'll be discussing with the importance of agriculture in the Indian economy and other related issues to it. There has been growing distress among the farmers and they are on roads to show their discontent against the policies of government and they are asking for loan waiver. So all these issues will be discussed in today's video. We will be discussing with the major types of agriculture, the issues related to the Indian agriculture, the scheme started by the government for the sake of agriculture, and what is this M.S. Swaminathan report. So all the farmers are insisting the government to implement this recommendations of M.S. Swaminathan report. So here we are going to see what are the major recommendations of this report. So let's start today's session. Here we go. So in our first slide, we are going to see what is the contribution of different sectors of Indian economy. So the primary sector is the agriculture and other allied activities of the agriculture, and the secondary sector consists of industries, mining, quarrying, etc. The tertiary sector exclusively consists of the services provided by the economy and the output out of it. So the contribution of service sector, that is the tertiary sector, to the gross domestic product, that is GDP, is almost 58%, while the manpower or the rate of employment of this service sector is hardly 28%. While in case of agriculture sector, that is the primary sector, the employment rate or the manpower is more than 50%, while the contribution is hardly 18%. The condition here is quite contrasting. The sector which is having much employment rate is showing the least output, while the sector with less employment rate or less manpower is giving the high output to the economy. So what are the reasons for this condition? We are going to discuss in the next slides. So coming to the primary sector, that is the agriculture sector of India, it comprises of many activities apart from proper agriculture, that is the forestry, the fisheries and livestock and other allied activities. On an average, the agriculture exports, they contribute to almost fifth of the total exports from the country. Even with respect to the total agriculture production across the globe, India is contributing almost 7% of total agriculture growth in this world. So what are the major types of agriculture that is existing in India at present? The major types or the farming practices in India are, first of its kind is the subsistence farming. This is a conservative and traditional type of farming where the entire family involves in cultivation of land. Majority of the farmers in India, they are practicing this subsistence type of agriculture. Here the land holding is very small. On an average, a person holds just 1 acre or 2 acres of land, while the entire family works hard for productivity of this small land holding. So here they will be using the primary or the primitive type of tools for the production. They don't have access to irrigation facilities and they don't use even the fertilizers. Thereby the output of this subsistence agriculture is very low. So this type of farming activity is conducted mainly to meet the needs of a family. Shifting type of agriculture. This type of agriculture is also called as the slash and burning type of agriculture, where a group of tribals, they will be cultivating one piece of land. After that, they will harvest the land and leave that straw by burning it. Soon they will be migrating to the another piece of land and allow the older land to improve its fertility. This type of agriculture is causing huge damage to the environment. So the obvious output of this type of agriculture is also very low. Another major type of farming is the plantation type of agriculture. This type of agriculture is introduced by the Britishers in India in the 18th century exclusively for the sake of commercial cropping pattern. So here under this plantation agriculture only one type of crop is cultivated. The crops like coffee, tea, rubber, sugarcane, coconuts, etc. all these are cultivated under this plantation type of agriculture. This type of agriculture is generally suitable in the hilly areas. Intensive farming. The name itself states that farming that result in high output or high productivity because of usage of enormous fertilizers and pesticides. They also utilize the irrigation facilities which are lacking in other types of farming. They will also use the high yielding variety of seeds which will also increase the quality of their produce. They totally depend on the mechanized agriculture, that is they will be using machines from tilling the land till harvesting the crop. So everything is mechanized instead of manual labor. Here the per hectare yield is very high. Mixed type of farming, this is mostly encouraged in the recent times because of decreasing land under the agriculture. So under this mixed type of farming, two or more crops are cultivated within a piece of land. Apart from that, the other activities like animal husbandry or livestock growing, fisheries are also carried out simultaneously. Thereby, within a limited space, you can expect a greater output from this type of mixed farming. This type of farming is generally followed in the good rainfall and good irrigation facility areas. Terrace farming. The name itself says that it is generally followed in the hilly areas, especially the hill slopes. Here in this picture, you can see the terrace type of farming where the flat lands are developed for the sake of growing the crops. And the main advantage of this type of terrace farming is it will check the soil erosion. This soil erosion is a consequence of the huge deforestation activity that is taking place for the development of industries. That's all about the major cropping patterns in India. And what are the issues related to the Indian agriculture? So, India is having the largest land under the agriculture activity compared to any other country in the world. But the output or the productivity from that land is very low. So, what is the reason for this low productivity? There are n number of reasons for this condition. We have already discussed in our previous slide that nearly 55% of the people are working in the agriculture sector, but still the contribution to GDP is hardly 18%. So what is the reason for this kind of statistics in case of agriculture sector? The main reason for this is disguised unemployment. As I discussed with you in the subsistence type of farming, within a small piece of land like 1 acre or 2 acres, the entire family is investing their work and time for the sake of a small output or a small produce. Consider a family consists of 6 members. So all these 6 members are working in 1 acre of land is hardly considered as a productive type of employment. So this type of employment where a person seems to be employed but he is actually not productive, this is called as the disguised unemployment, and Indian agriculture is majorly suffering with this disguised unemployment rate. Lack of irrigation facilities is another menace in the Indian agriculture. It is unfortunate that hardly 35% of the agriculture land comes under the irrigation, and the remaining percentage is rain fed or dependent on monsoons for the sake of cultivation. So what happens if this monsoon doesn't occur properly, where there is a deficit rainfall for that year? Obviously, the output will be very low and it has a huge impact on the Indian economy. Lack of monetary security. An Indian farmer doesn't have a regular income or a monthly income. Hence, there is no economic security for the farmer. So, this condition needs to be addressed immediately in order to avoid the farmer distress. Lack of crop insurance. So, with the recent climate change, there has been growing the natural disasters like floods and droughts and other man-made disasters. So, all these disasters will result in the crop loss. So, there is no proper insurance scheme available for this crop loss. In the recent times, with the recent cyclonic storms like Cyclone Gaja, Cyclone Titli, etc., they have also resulted in the wiping out of many croplands, which increased the distress of a farmer. Another issue is that limited minimum supporting price. Minimum support price is the price fixed by the government to the produce of the farmers. So the main objective of issuing this minimum support price is the government wanted to give assurance to the farmer for their produce in order to protect them against the sharp fall of the market prices. So this minimum support price, though seems to be a good initiative, there are many limitations to it. Hardly 22 crops are covered under this MSP. So what about the other crops? So recently, if you have seen the farmers who have grown onions, they don't get the proper remunerative price for their produce. So out of their anguish, they are throwing this produce on roads or into the nearby lakes in order to show their discontent. At present, MSP is given only to 22 crops, that is 14 Kharif crops, 6 Rabi crops and 2 commercial crops. So this is not a comprehensive measure for preventing the farmers' distress. So this MSP needs to be covered more crops. Fair and remunerative price is issued only to sugarcane crop. Another major issue is lack of infrastructure. So in case of subsistence type of farming, the people are still dependent on the primitive tools like sickle and rods. They don't have any proper mechanized agriculture patterns and they lack proper infrastructure. This have a huge impact on the output of the farmer. If you have taken the situation of a farmer in USA, he will hold a minimum land size of 100 acres and this entire 100 acres is under the constant surveillance of the farmer because the entire cropland is mechanized. Even they can use mini aeroplanes for the sake of spraying the pesticides and fertilizers. So this is the position of a farmer in USA, which is quite contrasting to the position of a farmer in India. Another recent menace, which is considered to be a man-made disaster, is the climate change. The climate change ultimately resulting the fluctuating monsoons. 85% of rainfall to India is expected from the southwestern monsoon, and this southwestern monsoon will strike the Malabar coast in between 1st to 7th of June every year. But with the climate change, there are weakening southwestern monsoons, thereby India is facing the rainfall deficit, which is having a huge impact on the Indian agriculture. Another menace is the El Nino effect. This El Nino effect, apart from having the impact of deficit rainfall, it also results in drought in many areas in the country. So those are all the major issues related to the Indian agriculture and the farmers. You can expect a prelims question like, at present minimum support price is offered to more than 50 crops. So in our previous slide we have discussed it, the number is hardly 22 crops are given that MSP, not the 50 crops. So here the first statement is absolutely incorrect. Fair and remunerative price is given to major crops of rice and wheat. This statement is also incorrect because FRP at present is issued only to sugar cane. So here the correct statements are none of the above. In order to prevent the distress of Indian farmer, the government of India have undertaken many schemes for the sake of agriculture and for the sake of farmers in order to increase their productivity. So what are the major schemes that are started by the government most recently? Kisan Credit Card. This was the scheme started in around 1998. This was the oldest scheme, and the main objective of this scheme is to enable the quick and timely access to credit to a farmer. A farmer has to buy the seeds, he needs to buy the fertilizers and pesticides for the sake of his crops. Hence, he needs some capital for the sake of investing in cultivation, and this capital is provided in the form of credit through this Kisan credit cards. But it is quite unfortunate that a recent report shown that nearly 15% of farmers are covered under this Kisan credit cards. Because of lack of awareness about the initiatives of the government, this situation is happening. Another innovative scheme is Soil Health Card. So what are these Soil Health Cards? This is an innovative scheme started by the government. It contains the status of 12 parameters that include the micronutrients of the soil, macronutrients of the soil, and some other minerals which are required for the maintenance of fertility of the soil. So this soil health card contains these 12 parameters, and ultimately it will give a report on the fertility of that land. So accordingly, a farmer has to use the fertilizers and pesticides based on the soil health card report. The most recent scheme is the interest subvention scheme. So it is also a kind of credit to the farmers which is given at subsidized interest rates. That is, the interest on the premium is reduced if a farmer pays the interest to the bank regularly. Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So the major objective is to ensure access to irrigation facilities to all agricultural farms in the country. And the major motto of this Krishi Sinchai Yojana is more crop per drop. So under this Krishi Sinchai Yojana, the sprinkling type of irrigation is encouraged. So here the water is used efficiently with this sprinkling type of agriculture, so that the water is made available even to the corner crop of a land. It ultimately aims to increase the produce of the farmer. Another scheme is National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture. So in our yesterday's video session, we were discussing about the National Action Plan for Climate Change. As I already told you, it is a mission mode action plan which consists of 8 sub-missions. So this National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture is one among the 8, and the objective here is to make agriculture more sustainable, remunerative, and climate resilient. So under this action plan, the drought-resistant varieties of crops are produced. The flood-resistant varieties are produced. So using the technology like biotechnology, genetic engineering, etc., these types of plants are produced. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, it is a new kind of crop insurance scheme provided to the farmers during the time of crop failure. So the crop of a farmer is insured prior to the cultivation, thereby giving financial assistance to them at the time of crop failure, whether it is a natural disaster or whether it is a man-made disaster. Another innovative scheme is Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. So the major objective under this scheme is to promote the organic type of farming. So India was a home to the organic type of farming in the ancient times, but this type of agriculture have been slowly converted and modified into a commercial type of agriculture by the Britishers. It ultimately affected the fertility of our land. So the farmers, without any knowledge of the quantity of usage of fertilizers and pesticides, have used the fertilizers unsustainably, so that it ultimately resulted in land degradation. That is, over usage of fertilizers and pesticides make the land unsuitable for cultivation. But under this Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, Again, this kind of organic farming is bring back to life by using the naturally available resources like cow dung, urine from buffaloes, the husk of rice, etc. So all these kind of naturally available resources are used for increasing the productivity of the farm. A prelims question be like, more crop per drop is the motto of this scheme. We have already discussed in our previous slide. The answer is Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Option C. This scheme is related to the promotion of organic farming in India, and the answer is Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. The option is D. MS Swaminathan report. This issue is in news from so long because the farmers are coming on the streets and showing their revolt against the government, and they are insisting the government to implement the recommendations of MS Swaminathan. This is also called as the National Commission on Farmers, and this commission is chaired by Professor MS Swaminathan, who is also called as father of Green Revolution. So the commission have submitted 5 reports while the government is reluctant to implement these recommendations. Why? Because some of the recommendations are already into existence and some of the recommendations are quite impractical to implement. So this is the reason why the government has to consider this report once again and make certain changes according to the changing circumstances in agriculture. So what are the major recommendations of this National Commission for Farmers? One of the major recommendations to be noted here is agriculture be inserted in the concurrent list of the Constitution. At present, agriculture comes as a entity under the state list, but the Commission recommended it should come under the concurrent list so that both the state and center can make policies on it. The report also talked about the land reforms, preventing the diversion of agricultural land for the sake of industrial activities, ensuring certain rights to the tribals that are living nearby the forests, thereby providing certain access to the resources. The Commission also recommended for construction of private wells for the sake of water harvesting and recharge of groundwater. It also talked about increase in investment in agriculture for the sake of comprehensive development of agriculture sector. It also recommended for establishing a national network of advanced soil testing laboratories. So at present, the soil health card is issued by the authorized laboratories by the government, and this kind of laboratories should form a network for exchange of information and further development of agriculture productivity. The committee recommended for the conservative type of farming instead of the commercial farming because they are of opinion that the conservative type of farming being helpful to the families to increase the soil health, water quantity, quality and life of the biodiversity around it. So those are the major recommendations of National Commission for Farmers under MS Swaminathan. This seems to be a potential question in mains because there have been ever growing farmer protests in the country. So you can expect a mains questions like, crop loan waiver is perceived to be a major solution to end the farmer distress in India. Justify your answer with relevant examples. So many state governments, they have been promising for loan waiver. So ultimately it has a huge impact on the exchequer of the country. Even in today's news, the former governor of RBI, Mr. Raghuram Rajan, have talked about the impact of crop loan waiver on the Indian economy. Already the banks have been suffering from the twin balance sheet problem. If this crop loan waiver is encouraged further, it may become a huge burden on the banks which are already under distress due to increasing NPAs. So this question, if you wanted to write, you can do it in that comment section. Another question be like, agriculture sector has been neglected for many years since independence. which resulted in the drastic consequences like land degradation, farmer suicides, food scarcity, etc. So suggest reforms to make this primary sector more remunerative and productive. So this is another question, you can answer it easily. You can take some of the recommendations from that National Commission for Farmers and you can use it in your answer. And you can suggest the reforms accordingly. This is all for today. If you like our videos, please do subscribe us. You can also visit our website kpias.com. If you are interested, provide your mains answer writing in the comment section so that we can evaluate and give you a detailed feedback. This is also a way to practice your mains answers. Have a great day. Thank you.